Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. I'm Mars. I'm here with my boys, P and Kyle. Say what's up, gents.
Ready to rock.
I'm trying to say something, bro. So, Cal, can you please give us a breakdown of what this story is about? And me and Petey will come in to give the actual assessment of this particular story.
Okay, well, this is an out of continuity tale, and it's DC Blacklit, which is more their prestige form. This is their version of prestige format in 2023. So, written by Mark Waid with art by Brian Hitch and Kevin Nolan on the arts, on the inks, which I think he's doing a really good job. It's the last days of Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor is dying, but he reaches out to the one person he believes can help him from meeting this particular fate, Superman. See, Lex Luthor has decided that Superman has a particular trait that he doesn't agree with, but he knows that he can count on him for. Superman always helps people. So Lex Luthor gets his attention by trying to commit mass murder.
That's the
No other word to say it. No other word to
keep
say it.
going. Keep going.
Superman, of course, comes, saves the day, and then he's like, man, I gotta help this dude. And Lex Luthor also broadcasts it to the world so Superman has got to keep his word, can't go back on it. And then, of course, you get the whole, the unenviable position of being, well, man, he's gonna save Lex Luthor. That guy's a murderer. The guy's killed so many people. But in the same breath, if he breaks his word, oh, you can't trust Superman. So you got that little bit of stuff going on over there. But this is a Bronze Age tale. So I always remind for anybody who's like, "Oh, Bronze Age, comic books need to be modernized." No, this is a Bronze Age tale. The way that Lex Luthor acts, okay, the way Superman acts, and the fact that you're going through the different worlds of Superman as well, uh, which I might tap into a little bit later. But this is pretty much a pre-crisis type story that Superman will find himself in, all the time, written by either Elliot S. Megan or Martin Castle, Gary Bates. So it's that standard type of tale. But that's where we are with the first issue. Superman has to save Lex Luthor's life, and we watch as he goes through different avenues to see how successful he can be. And well, we know it's the first issue, so he's probably not going to be too successful coming right out the gate. Fellas?
Well, thank you very much for that, Cal. Petey, what was your take of this comic?
I'd agree. It's definitely a little more bronze than it is present day, but it has Brian Hitch, so it kind of has his kind of art. The mass murder part he was talking about, this big spectacle of action, which ultimately would have been done in maybe top panel or something like that. This would be, or maybe Superman flying in the splash page, and you see the monster or the robotic thing coming out attacking a metropolis that way. But it's utilizing what the current storytelling has, and it having Brian Hitch and was it Kevin Nolan inking it, so it's like has this big spectacle to it. It does have the hard part is the part where Luthor's all these people have died. it, not including his attack on there, but these people have died, and Superman, even though he's a little bit bothered, the part where they're standing together with him is like, all right, no, let's put you in jail and figure out how to save you. Let's not walk around while you're videotaping me and you're doing all this other stuff. But the Luthor and Superman stories where they have to either try to work together, have always been kind of interesting. So I think they did it in the cartoon, the one I guess from the 70s or something. I only saw it in reruns, but I was watching that, and I enjoyed the one where they had to work together to get back to Earth. So it seems like I'll see how this one's gonna go.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up about the whole mass murder. I mean, that's probably one of the things that threw me off automatically about the story. Like, there's no other way to reach Superman. You can't just like, call home like ET, like, let me call an alien. There has to be a 1-800-alien number that you can call and get Superman.
This is Lex Luthor from the Bronze Age. Okay, maybe modern age stuff, after 1986, we could see something like that happen. Bronze Age Lex Luthor would have been like, look, how do I get this guy's attention and know he's going to show up? I'll try to kill as many people as possible. That'll definitely get him out. And he had no compunctions about it at all. The only Lex Luthor who was worse than him was the Lex Luthor on Earth 2, because that guy, he was well, I don't want to get that's a whole the differences between those two guys. Very Stark, and he's the one who actually had his hair on Earth 2 was even worse. But this is standard stuff what he would do to get Superman's attention at the end of the day. And the Bronze Age reasoning would be, look, if Lex Luthor went to Superman and said, "Hey, I need your help because I'm dying" or something of that nature, Superman like, "This is a trick. I'm not showing up for this thing. You're gonna try to kill me again. So I gotta get him out. I know I can always get him out doing this, and let's let everything roll from there." Standard Lex Luthor stuff pre-crisis. Post-crisis, post-crisis, of course, there'll be a little bit more. I don't want to say analysis, but then the whole idea is, well, why don't they try that? Well, because Superman would never show up for that.
Yeah, I mean that's I get what you're saying, but it's still shocking that he did. I mean, what's the most shocking thing that you would expect Lex Luthor to do? I wouldn't expect him to do. Basically, you're talking about destroy a whole island or town because you want to get his attention. So that threw me off initially, but I mean, Lex Luthor and his machinations are just so good. I wouldn't say good, but bad, in that he gets Superman to promise to try and save him, and he records it so the entire world hears what he actually said. Everybody's like, "Yo, what are you doing? Why don't we just let this guy?" But he knows how honorable Superman is, and he keeps his promise. So I mean, that was something crazy right there. And another part is when they were in what is it? That is negative zone. What was that zone called?
Oh, you talking about the Phantom Zone?
The Phantom Zone. He's in the Phantom Zone, and he's like telling the General Zod and his minions, "Yo, dude, don't hurt Superman now, right? I need him now, but later on,
Yeah,
you can take him out." And I'm like, wow, that's like consistent, and that's a good thing. Consistency through the story. The Lex Luthor. This is just for him to get over what issues that he's dealing with, so he can get to Superman. So I definitely, as the story progressed, I liked it a little bit more. Once past that mass murder part, the genocidal murder was taken off the table.
That's the Lex Luthor pre-crisis. That's who this guy was. He wanted to. This dude would have eaten somebody's face off to kill Superman. He didn't care. He did not care. He was evil. He was evil. I mean, I think I already told you there was a four-part story where Lex Luthor, he comes up with such an intricate scheme to try to kill Superman, where he ends up erasing his own memory and breaking his own heart just to get a chance to kill Superman. That's where that guy was at. 1986, he just became like a businessman with a grudge at the end of the day. But Bronze Age, this guy was come up with these elaborate, and elaborate schemes to try to kill Superman. He did not care if he didn't care how many people died. He wanted him dead. It did not matter. So that definitely might be a bit jarring. Where you got Lex Luthor today and he's like running around with the Justice League, that nonsense. But but pre-crisis, no. Like, I want to kill Superman. Okay, that is what I wake up thinking. That's what I think about all day. And by the evening, hopefully I have a plan. I'm going to put it into action tomorrow.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Another point that I thought that was pretty interesting was the very fact that when Superman, the story flashes back and forth from the past to the current.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And that's another thing that made the story pretty strong. You want to take that, Petey?
No, I just had I had I don't know if that's the birthright stuff where Lex Luthor is just this person who's kind of despised in the town. He's like the weirdo in town, whereas the everyone, well, not everyone, but I remember the Luthor story where they kind of gave him, well, he kind of had two backstories in Superboy, but the one where he's helping Superboy, he's just seems to be like a regular kid, and then next thing you know, this freak accident happens, and he blames Superboy for it, and he supposedly loses this organism, and he loses hair. But then at the same time, he's like, "I got a little of this organism left. I'm going to use it to hurt." Wait, you still got it. So the insanity. But I didn't. That portion of it, I didn't like that he is now like obviously the kind of being the guy who's always saw it as the bad guy in the neighborhood. Like people in town don't like him, that sort of thing.
No, bad guy, more misunderstood. I mean, he tried to do something good, but
Stop it!
the way he
Stop
goes
it!
about it
Stop
is,
it!
is, is
Stop! Stop!
you know.
Are you going by the story or are you going by pre-crisis? Because the story makes it pretty clear what Lex's problem is. he's not evil, okay, and in certain instances he actually looks like he wants to help, but socially he's just not with it. He does stuff, he's got, what is it? He's got too much intellect and he's got too much IQ and not enough EQ. Very simple. When he goes like, "Hey, I'm going to go tinker on this guy's thing. It's going to be more efficient." He's like, "Dude, you got to ask me first. Okay, I don't know what the hell you're doing. I can't afford for you to come tinkering around with this thing and break it and so on and so forth." So more than anything, he's like a nuisance. He's like, "Oh, here comes that Luther kid again," but he's not evil.
I don't like, not that he's evil, but how they're treating him, and it's kind of like the psychology, the '80s armchair psychology. Like obviously, they've been treating him this way, and of course, he becomes the evil that they expect. Him himself, he's not necessarily evil, but how they treat him is that '80s kind of thing where they kind of, not '80s Superman, '80s television, Donahue, well, what's the name, saying, "Look at this guy who's going through all these things," whereas someone who doesn't have their life together and kind of on the side isn't always the guy that's going to turn into the terrible person, but that's kind of where they're leading. So that portion, I just, in the originals, was it the Silver Age, just the fact that he was just he was just a scientist trying to help Superboy, and he wasn't looked at by anyone else as a bad guy. Even in the story, when he goes bad, they don't know it. He's like trying to going around, and he's able to do these things, but then it's like it doesn't go off in the original comic. But he gets to do another thing to try to mess with Superboy. So that's the kind of thing that I was just kind of like, it felt like it's a little too easy to do. But anyway.
But in doing this, I was seeing Lex Luthor. I put up another article as to, how evil can this guy be? You know what I'm trying to say? Because I mean, I was like, yo, intrigued, like, dude, trying to massacre an entire planet. I mean, not planet, entire city or town just to get the word of Superman. I started looking into some of the evil deeds that he's done throughout the ages.
He had schemes where he was going to take out, like, I mean, literally, the planet would have ended up blowing up if the scheme had ended up working, just because he wanted to kill Superman. He actually, at one point, this is all pre-crisis. Lex Luthor was regarded as a hero on this alien planet called Lexor. The entire planet looked at him as a hero, all right? And he was there, and everything was going fine, and so on and so forth. And the entire planet ends up being destroyed because of this trap that he had left for Superman that he never deactivated.
It's crazy. But it's something about him paralyzing his sister, to scroll down, Petey.
That's a post-crisis story. And that was with Superboy, where he had done that, and he wasn't going to help her. He wasn't going to help her, and of course it was connected to Superman somehow. I mean, Lex Luthor is one of these. He's one of these characters where justification for the best justification they ever had was the Superboy stuff. Other than that, there's no real justification for whatever he has for Superman. The return, or at least the way that they present him here, even with the art, where this guy, like, he's always he's got this arrogance, about him at the end of the day, even when he's in the Phantom Zone, and he's like, "Oh, yeah, don't worry, we'll get him next time." He fully expects that despite his conditions, Superman's going to help him, he's going to be okay, and then he's just going to go right back to trying to kill this dude again.
I know, it's just crazy. It is like, you would figure that he would learn. But in bringing that, I also talk about the harsh realities. CBR also had another article about the realities of Lex Luthor. One of the things that I noticed is that Lex Luthor, they made a good point. I never realized this. He has no friends, right?
He
has no friends.
Oh, he did have a friend. He did have a friend.
And they said he's never found true love.
That's not true either. He did have, again, but all this is post-crisis. Okay, he did have a friend. His friend he was friends with Superboy, and he found true love more than once pre-crisis. I'm gonna think Petey actually hit me to this with something that he said, that this story is pretty much tied in with the whole birthright thing that Mark Waid did. That is what makes the most sense, because there's no Superboy in the story, but Clark still has the powers and everything of that nature, even when he's a teenager. So I'm going to presume that this is more like an extension to that particular storyline that he was going with. But all of those justifications, like, no, he had a friend. Okay, even in this story, the only the one person who actually is trying to connect with him for obvious reasons, Clark Kent. So it's not that it's not that he doesn't have opportunities for friendship. In post crisis, he actually did have a friend. As but PD went through the whole thing with he loses the organism, and then everything after that is just like, hey, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna like try to take out Superboy, and it just escalates out of control from there. Because even if you read that Superboy issue where he's doing all this stuff, by the time he's an adult and Superman, this has been going on for years. This has been going on for years at the end of the day with no sign of slowing down. And he wasn't this business person where he could like try to claim being respectable. No, he was a super villain. You never knew when this guy was going to show up, and when he showed up, you didn't know how many people were going to die because of what he was going to do to try to kill Superman.
Lex Luthor knows he will never be the hero, because he's always second best to Superman, basically, right? I mean, this guy supposedly has an intellect, is one of the smartest intellects in the entire world. Even, I'm not even going to say better than Batman, but close to Batman, And yet, as opposed to trying to do some other stuff, he's come up with he, as a human being, has made himself practically the nemesis of probably one of the most powerful beings on the entire planet, right? And to some degree, he's held his own, right, Cal?
Oh,
yes, Mars.
You're trying to do this analysis that doesn't hold up, which again, for me, is like, okay, I don't want to take anybody to task, but you guys don't know the character, and you don't know the characters. They don't know the character's history well enough to even attempt to make this analysis. It's not that, again, his enmity, his hatred of Superman doesn't really make sense. Because the whole idea is I got to take Superman out, and then I would be number one. Well, what about all these other superpowered beings you got running all over the place? Okay, and it's just Superman? At the end of the day, it doesn't really hold up when you try to do that analysis. And when you take the Superboy stuff out, it makes even less sense at the end of the day. I mean, this was a character who, for all intents and purposes, without that, is just evil for evil's sake. There's really not a lot else going there. The 86 reboot was that, Superman ends up, humiliating him or embarrassing him. And then after that, it becomes, all right, I'm going to get this guy. But what was he trying to do? Was he trying to kill? Was he literally going to try to kill him because he was embarrassed? Because that's pretty extreme for the one incident that got the whole, got the ball rolling at the end of the day. So,
well, they say he's not psycho. So the question is, if that doesn't make you psycho, I'm trying to say, what does? They say they kind of compare him to the Joker.
But I don't. The hard part in going back to with the first, the earliest story, is that it's kind of a, like people are asking, hey, or no, actually they're just maybe even coming up with, hey, we haven't done how they first met. And they say, no, we have done how they first met. Oh, no, we'll forget that story. We're doing one where he's kind of the same age as. We're not going to do what we did before. We're going to do another story, which, over time you just, you run over the stories that you already have. But I mean, either story is, Lex Luthor is kind of this thing of having this. I think it was one of the first ones where he says, are we going to be, what's going to happen to this guy over time? And then he has the same assessment that, like them kind of being locked in this battle all these years over, or I think some people saying the protoplasm. It's like, but he had a little left. He could have made more. It's like, no, it's gone forever. It's like, no, I got a little left. I can use this to kill Superman. It's like, no, dude, come on. He was your buddy. Like, things gonna work out better for you. But I think the
finish, and everybody always said about, because he caused him to lose his hair. I was like, you didn't read this story, did you?
Well, I think if you go to it, you X out the first Superboy story. You just have a guy who enjoys messing with Superman, and the same post is that this guy just like, I'm gonna keep messing with him. And either way, he's just a guy that just loves messing with him, even more so in the pre-crisis and the Silver Age, where you get the death, where it's just like, I'm gonna play the long game in killing Superman. I'm gonna do my best to work this out. So that's the thing that you're dealing with. Getting too much, having a little bit of thing where you say, okay, this is why it's fine, but just have fun, just have fun. But get into this history, which was kind of, a little too much for me, because Superboy obviously you know, we as the fans, we know that ultimately, if this is the case, Luthor needs to get over it. This is your best. Now he's really his best friend. He's the only guy that sees good in and you're gonna hate him forever. But we'll see how it plays out to see what Superboy did to say it's my fault. It's my fault. So I'm worried where this is gonna go. But you know, the Luthor and when they have to deal with each other has always been kind of fun. So that's why I'm sticking it out and not saying I'm not going with the worrying about Wade. Let's see how it goes. But it did seem like, hey, you just killed these people. Don't stand next to this guy. He's the worst thing. Then no, we got to play out this story. Put him in jail and then get some scientists to help him. It was like, because you know what? I know some things, but we can work together with a bunch of other scientists. No, Superman, I want you to take me on this adventure. Okay, yeah, that would be more fun for the comic readers. So yeah, let's do it.
But put him in jail, and we're going to bring the Kandorians to him.
Please don't bring the Kandorians to
We're gonna, the whole idea. I mean, and again, this is something that has more pre-crisis flavor to it because pre-crisis you had like 5 worlds of Superman. You had Krypton, you have Smallville, you have Metropolis, you have you have Kandor slash the Phantom Zone, and then you would have the future with the Legion. So you know the setup for the story is he's going to exercise all of those areas first because those are the places that he can access. I don't know how well he accesses them with Luthor in jail, and then you want to see some interplay between the two of them. So he's got to, so he's going to have to come along. So I mean, yeah, I think logically, real world, yeah, put him in jail, see if you can come up with the cure and bring it back to him, and so on and so forth. Then of course we have to ask the question: well, what jail is going to hold this dude?
Look,
So more than likely it's going to be something that Superman comes up with. Superman comes up with anyway. So it all pretty much boils down. If you put him in jail, he's getting out. So unless somebody's watching him 24/7, and the first person to do that is Superman, he's going to end up with him anyway.
but that's the bigger issue is he taped him saying he's gonna save him. He's giving him all of the Kryptonian stuff. How many? All of our ailments are now going to be have to deal brought to Superman. It's like, how could you help Luthor? And I got, it's like, first of all, you couldn't even get his hair back. Why'd you take him to Kandor to get his hair back? You're gonna help it bring him to Kandor for this thing to cure my cancer, cure my everyone's gonna be at the door to helping Superman, which is kind of what the movie was kind of not to say, like, don't be life changing stuff.
Or
Hard to do.
hair plugs. He can do that on Earth. And Luther's smart enough that if he wanted to get his hair back, he could do that on his own.
He can't. It's been a constant that he can't. He can't.
So the whole idea, and I've always agreed with this. This has to be something that's a job for Superman. Getting your hair back is not a job for Superman. If you're the smartest guy on the planet, you can do that. The other stuff, and the other thing is, we know Luther's lying. We know he's lying.
That's the other problem. That's the big problem. Thank you. That's the like we are going this Odyssey to live.
Panel in this first issue. There's this great panel, and it takes place during the whole Phantom Zone, escapade, and you can see it. It comes from out of nowhere too. It's just Superman, and he's got this look on his face, and you can tell he knows that this dude is up to something, and he just played his hand because it's straight Bronze Age stuff. Where this guy, Superman would already sort out how Luthor was going to try to pull what off and everything of that nature. Had to let it play out for X amount of reasons and such. He knows he's lying. He's not going to find a cure. He's not going to find a cure for this dude because he already knows something else is up. Luther's the smartest dude on the planet, and these are terrestrial problems. If he can't solve it here, there's nothing else for it at the end of the day. Okay, but we get to see, the whole idea is the interplay between the two of them, and based on the fact that he has a connection to him when he was not evil. So he can still hold out against hope that, hey, maybe this guy can actually turn it around because he wasn't always like this.
Well, I do like the fact that the Phantom Zone, that the use of they were able to push Superman out, actually physically touch Superman.
I like them just kind of stuck and not being able to do nothing.
No, but
you're not being able to do nothing.
So much. It was so much. I like that. One of the big problems I have with the comics is the coloring, right? But in the Phantom Zone portion of it, I liked it. Other parts of it, I'm not crazy about the pastel colors, but that area, that part I thought was done very, very well.
I found that part with the fence. I mean, I enjoyed as you can see, I enjoyed the whole story thoroughly. That part of the Phantom Zone, though, I did find that a little bit problematic. I'm like, wait a minute, if you can push Luthor out, why don't you just push out Zod right after him? Go kill Superman.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Right, so generally we like the it's a good start, and we want to see more. We know Luther is not telling the whole truth, and we hope to see what develops going forward. What
Well,
Matt,
I did was saying seeing Kevin Nolan on there. I remember the Superman and the Aliens, the second one with Nolan, but it was John Bogdanov. Was it Chris Dixon that did it? So it was the art style is different because John Bogdanov was very action packed, but it just reminded me that he worked together on a Superman story. But that's all I wanted to add. That bit.
anything final words for you, Cal?
No, again, you're a Superman fan, highly recommend it, especially if you're a guy who's read more than just if you came in and you've actually read post crisis and pre crisis, very rewarding read at the end of the day because a whole bunch of stuff comes into play. And you got somebody who does understand those particular dynamics. Just a real, I mean, this is probably the best Superman story I've read in a long time. Something that I can actually recommend to other people to read.
Wow, strong praise.
Very
Okay,
so, very much so.
interact.
Out.
Oh.